The House is resumed for the extended sitting. I call on Government Order of the Day number 9.
Te Atiawa Claims Settlement Bill, first reading.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Christopher Finlayson.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Te Atiawa Claims Settlement Bill be now read a first time, and I nominate the Maori Affairs Committee to consider this bill. Mr Speaker, I welcome the people of Te Atiawa to this House again. In June 2014, they were here to initial the deed of settlement. This time they're here to witness the first reading of their settlement bill. As we all know, the journey to reach this settlement has taken a very long time, certainly not been without its challenges. But today I don't want to dwell on the past. Instead, I'd rather look to the future, and I am very, very pleased to be part of this significant occasion. I want to begin with a few acknowledgements. I acknowledge those who have worked tirelessly since 1998 on this settlement. This includes members of Te Atiawa iwi, specifically those of Te Atiawa who have passed away and are no longer here to experience this particular point in the history of the iwi. Obviously, our thoughts and our deepest appreciation go to Wikitoria Keenan, who was one of the driving forces behind the Te Atiawa negotiations and who passed away following the signing of the deed of settlement. She dedicated her life to her people, and she left us too soon. I also acknowledge those who are still with us, some of whom are sitting in the gallery today. I understand Justin Keenan, Wikitoria's son, is here on his mother's behalf. Mr Speaker, special acknowledgement must also go to Peter Moiahu, who has led the Te Atiawa negotiations from the outset with Wikitoria. Peter and Wikitoria kept fighting for Te Atiawa's best interests with mana, with commitment and perseverance. I acknowledge the dedication of the original Te Atiawa Waitangi Tribunal claimants. They were persistent in pursuing recognition and justice. I want to acknowledge the past members of the Te Atiawa Authority, the mandated negotiation entity, and the trustees of the Post-Settlement Trust. Finally, sir, I acknowledge the Chief Crown Negotiator, Rick Barker, for his contribution to the settlement. I also acknowledge my team at the Office of Treaty Settlements and other government organisations for their great work. Mr Speaker, it's very fitting that this House starts consideration of settlement legislation for Te Atiawa on 16 March. For it was on 17 March 1860 that Crown troops at Waitara fired the first shots in the Taranaki Wars. I'll now briefly discuss the history of the relationship between Te Atiawa and the Crown. It includes some of the most unfortunate episodes in the history of our country. It provides the underlying context to why we are here today seeking to settle with Te Atiawa. By the mid-1850s, Crown land purchasing had contributed to hostility and fighting within Te Atiawa, resulting in loss of life for Te Atiawa people. In March 1860, the Crown's insistence on completing a land purchase at Waitara, despite the strong opposition of many Te Atiawa, led to the outbreak of the First Taranaki War. Fighting continued until a peace agreement in April 1861, which provided for the Waitara purchase to be investigated. However, the Crown precipitated another war by occupying various blocks before this investigation was completed. Although the Crown renounced the Waitara purchase, it was too late to prevent the fighting, which continued into 1864. The Crown exacerbated the terrible impact of the wars on Taranaki by indiscriminately confiscating the entire rohe of Te Atiawa in 1865. The Crown was only prepared to leave Te Atiawa with small reserves of poor quality land after the confiscation, and insisted on awarding these reserves to individual Te Atiawa rather than the tribal groups who held land in Te Atiawa custom. In the 1870s and 1880s, the Crown caused great distress to the iwi by the repressive measures it took to suppress the peaceful resistance campaign of Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kahaki, and they had established a settlement at Parihaka. In 1879 and 1880, many Te Atiawa were made political prisoners and detained without trial in the South Island. And of course, in 1881, the Crown invaded Parihaka. The Crown's unjust and unconscionable treatment of the Parihaka community was an assault on the human rights of its inhabitants. In the 20th century, the Crown's actions regarding the reserves left to Te Atiawa after the Raupatu deprived them of ownership and control of these lands. While the lands confiscated made a significant contribution to the wealth and development of our country, in recent years, many Te Atiawa people have lived in very poor economic circumstances. Mr. Speaker, the resilience of these people is evident. Today, this growing iwi has a vision for the future which moves from Raupatu to restoration. Let me say something now about the settlement package. With negotiations on a package spanning almost 2 decades, reaching the milestone that brings us here today is the result of great commitment and dedication on the part of Ngā Uri o Te Atiawa. In 2010, on 17 March 2010 in fact, the Crown recommenced negotiations with Te Atiawa, which, as I said, began as far back as 1998. An agreement in principle was signed in December 2012. The deed was settled here was initialed here in Parliament in June 2014 and was finally signed in August 2014. The bill was introduced back in September last year, and of course this is the first reading of that bill. The deed contains a settlement package which I hope will mark a new beginning in the relationships between Te Atiawa and the Crown. Key elements of the package include a quantum of $87 million and a cultural fund of nearly $1 million, the option to purchase 51 Office of Treaty Settlement land bank sites, the vesting of the Taumata Historic Reserve in fee simple to Te Atiawa, and the joint vesting of Ngā Motu Sugarloaf Islands in both Te Atiawa and Taranaki iwi. The package contains overlay classifications over 4 sites of particular importance, statutory acknowledgements over 44 sites of significance, and deeds of recognition over 15 sites and place name changes. It also includes a proposed model for iwi representation on Taranaki Regional Council's 2 standing committees. Mr. Speaker, finally, given the historical and cultural importance of the site to Te Atiawa, mention must be made of the opportunity in the settlement package for Te Atiawa to enter into agreement to purchase any of the Waitara endowment lands from the New Plymouth District Council. This clause provides the iwi with future development opportunities in the heart of their rohe should an agreement be reached. In closing, I recognise, as I always do in these speeches, that it's not possible to compensate Te Atiawa fully for the loss and prejudice suffered as a result of the Crown's acts and omissions. I acknowledge, however, the generosity Te Atiawa have shown in accepting the redress contained in their deed of settlement and in this bill. I understand Te Atiawa already have exciting projects underway, including the building of Ngā Motu Marae in New Plymouth. I believe the settlement outlined in this bill will support them in realising their future endeavours and aspirations for Te Atiawa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.